which is strategies. Okay, strategies for college reading and study. To talk about these strategies, we need to use metacognition and SQ3R. The next one. In strategies for reading, we have to understand that it means using specific techniques for understanding, studying, and learning. As you know from your previous training sessions, learners do have different learning styles. But sometimes an individual learner doesn't know their particular learning style, how they learn best. We have some basic approaches today that are helpful for all learners. When offered these alternatives, the learners can use what seems to work for them. At the end of the presentation, you can decide what might work for you personally, or what might work for individual learners in specific situations. Now, here are some basic strategies that can be used to achieve the most efficient understanding and retention of college material. To talk about how we learn or how we know, we're using metacognition. Metacognition, knowing about knowing, thinking about thinking. Of course, to review with you, it means having the knowledge, awareness, and understanding of the thinking process involved while you read. So, strategies of metacognition that apply to reading are these 5 here: predict, picture, visualize, relate, monitor, and correct strategies to fit the reading. Metacognition strategies can be something like this: keep your eye on the ball, focus, gain insight through think alouds. You see, if your eye comes off the ball, you may find that your mind is starting to wander. Perhaps you discovered that your eyes are going over the text, and what you've actually been thinking about is your grocery list. But as coaches of learners, we act like coaches as coaches of athletes do. Keep your eye on the ball, but how to tell them where to look. That's our function when we're dealing with learners. That's how learners are coached. We tell them where to look. So the next slide is just a visualization of how we can apply those notions to helping others get the most out of college reading. We're showing learners where to look, and educators call this process scaffolding. Okay? Let's take a look at this picture. Say we're in our optimal learning zone of proximal development developed by Vygotsky. This is where we are now. And if I were to use scaffolding in this zone, this picture illustrates how learners can create new meaning by seeing something not seen before. Raise your hand, please, if you can see the arrow in the FedEx sign. Anybody raising their hand? Ping. 1 out of 5 saw the arrow. Very good, and that's Chris. You've seen this before, Chris? Okay. I won't be able to hear Chris, will I? Oh, yes, yes. And Chris, I suppose we're going to use scaffolding to help the others discover where the arrow is. Okay. Kim has a question. Did you find the arrow? Okay. All right. So, as a hand up, the arrow starts from the bottom of the capital E and points towards the side of the X. Now you all see the arrow? Put your hands up when you see it. It goes from the bottom of the capital E to the left side of the capital X. Okay, you've had an aha moment here. 2 people have had an aha moment. That's what it feels like when you help somebody to have a new level of awareness. Let's see if we can get everybody to have that new level of awareness about this arrow. In the E, the bottom opening points toward the left side of the X. And once you see this, you will always see it. Hello? Anybody else need help with that? Yeah, Danette said. Okay, Jen, look at the E, the capital E, the capital E, yes, not the little one, not the lowercase. And the point of the arrow comes from the, it goes into the left side of the X from the bottom of that capital E. Yeah, it takes a little while. You've seen it before. Okay, thank you very much. All set? All right, great. So that's what it feels like to take learners from one level to another, or to be a learner taken from one level to the other. It's what we call an aha moment, right? So now I'm going to offer the SQ3R method as a scaffold to move to students to more efficient college reading. And the first step is in the next what am I saying here? The next slide, which is to survey. The S, we're going to concentrate on the S part of SQ3R. The survey is the previewing stage. The survey tool predicts questions and activates past knowledge or schemata. In addition, you can't see it very well there, I'm sorry. We'll fix that later. It establishes a purpose for reading. And in the next slide, I ask the question, why stop and preview or survey? I'm talking about not reading from start to the beginning and read right through. I think you can help learners better by telling them to survey first, to avoid the temptation to start and read right through, because it helps you focus more if you can activate your schemata, as it says here. A schemata is like a computer file in your brain. It holds all you know about the subject. And it helps you predict the topic if you just look at, if you survey the article or the chapter that you have to read in your textbook. And this kind of previewing helps bring up your past knowledge of the topic to the printed page. All right? So here is an essential part of previewing or surveying. Create preview questions. Those of you who took this course before understand the value of this. Here are some signposts for answering preview questions. Of course, read the title. Skip to introductory material. Skip to subheadings. Note the italics, boldface, print, and numbers. Note any visual aids. Even read the concluding summary. Still, they haven't read from the beginning to the end yet. They've developed questions. And this is an assignment that we have in the course, and I've provided an example on the next slide. I don't know if you can read it or not, but the questions in blue were created after this student read an article about the critical period hypothesis. So those blue questions were created before the student read the article. Now, formulating these questions is the most vital previewing skill. And after asking the preview survey questions, then they can go ahead and read from front to back to find the answers. So now we've gone through the S and the Q part of SQ3R. Pardon me? Oh, are there any questions about the questions? No? Okay, we'll go ahead to the first R in the 3 R's. This is reading, which is the knowledge integration stage. After the questions, you decide what to look for, and you establish a reason and a purpose for reading. Here's where you begin from the beginning. And this knowledge integration is a metacognitive description of what goes on in your head while reading. Suggests in this that you decide to accept what the author is saying temporarily, even though you might not agree. All the while, your mind is trying to picture images, relate ideas, monitor understanding, and correct strategies. One way to check your knowledge integration is to create annotations. And here's an example of an electronic annotation. This paragraph was taken from an electronic copy of a part of a history text. So with an electronic copy, you can annotate as the key shows you, using, say, a red font for main idea. You can use bold for new vocabulary, as you see, and you can underline significant details. This, you can see, would be helpful to have a copy of for review. In addition, of course, you bought the textbook, you own the textbook, you can take a pen, a pencil, a highlighter, and you can annotate right in the text in the book. You say, well, I want to sell my book. Well, you know, I used to enjoy buying used books that other people had annotated. I felt like I was having a conversation with the previous owner of the book. So, annotations help in integrating the knowledge while you're reading. Read with pen, pencil, or perhaps your cursor in hand. Any questions about annotations like this? We really recommend them. Okay, do you use them? Right. Yourself. Gee, if you're annotating a whole article or a chapter, I don't quite understand the 4-sentence limitation. No, well, I'm not talking about annotating bibliographies. I'm talking about putting notes in your margin, in your textbook, taking your pen and writing, or underlining, whatever you want to do, circling new vocabulary. I'm not talking about creating an annotated bibliography.
So yes, and the Christopher says I use the task. It's there so I can write my books that are moved into
Neat. Yeah, neat. Very good. Okay. Of course, the way you do annotations is, you know, a particular thing for each individual learner. There's no prescribed method for annotations. Here's some more reader's tips. Make predictions. Do you know when you're reading stories to children, the best way to get children to improve their comprehension is to ask them to predict what might be happening in the next page. So you can do that for college reading as well. Make predictions. And then think about the picture you're forming in your head from the information. You could share an analogy. An analogy, everybody know what they are. It's like as if I were to say tutoring is to students as coaching is to athletes. So that's an analogy that is an example I could use. In other words, what you're doing to connect with the text is to constantly be monitoring what's new here, what is here that I haven't already heard or know about. Just a little note here that the good reader is always predicting, visualizing, and drawing comparisons to assimilate new knowledge. So keep those little strategies in mind in addition to annotations. Okay, now we come to the second recall, the second R stage, the recall stage, where you review, connect information, you react, you reflect, and evaluate. Now here's where visual is helpful. So on the next slide, here's an example of a graphic organizer using the mind map software that you can find on the internet. Some learners will find that they prefer mind mapping. Have any of you used mind maps or visual mapping graphic organizers? Graphic organizers are excellent for taking notes and reviewing material later too. Yes, you've used graphic organizers. Antoinette has used them. Have you used them with your learners? You tutor. Okay, well, when you do, it's a strategy that you can fall back on or suggest and see how it goes. On the next is another visual method that is popular called Cornell Notes. It's very simple, although you can find the template for it, or several different templates for Cornell Notes just by Googling. Basically, it's just to put the keyword or the questions or the main ideas in the left-hand column and details in the right. You can take a piece of yellow lined paper, a ruler, and create a template for Cornell Notes, but it's also available electronically. And now we're going to move to the third R, which is the review diagram. Now, this diagram is not really a diagram, but it uses these 4 prompts to fill in after these keywords: topic, significant detail, relate, and react. Here's where you get to own the material. Looking through your own lens now, this is where you question and challenge the author. And some things to look for include the author's limitations, possible biases, faulty reasoning, questions left unanswered, and problems with or alternate interpretation of the author's examples. Now, here's where you can form your own ideas and theories. And what parts of the author's ideas do you agree with? And what parts would you revise? And what is your particular perspective? This is the highest order of critical thinking according to anybody's hierarchy of critical thinking. Does anybody use that particular simple review diagram? Well, it's simple but useful because, as I say, this is where the individual reader brings their experience and knowledge to the text. All right, and the next is just in passing. to remind us that mnemonics are very useful, and learners will probably enjoy being shown a couple of things. Anything that they're struggling with, if you can figure out a mnemonic for it, it's useful. For instance, there's a troublesome pair that a lot of my writing students have. How do you use affect and effect? Or it's pronounced the same, affect and effect, correctly. And a mnemonic that I suggest is to think of the A as the action, and the action, of course, is the verb, so you know to spell the verb with the A. And, of course, the other one, the E, is the noun. Outlining is more difficult. We want to encourage the correct outlining format. We want to encourage learners to make sure if they have a Roman numeral 1, they have a Roman numeral 2. If they have a capital A, they have a capital B. If they have a 1, they have to have a 2. I mean, this is a real problem with outlining, that people think people will put down a 1, can't think of a 2 subheading, and they leave it at that. But no, it should be just left with the A. So that's one good way to summarize and make sure that the reader owns the material they've been through. So here are some ideas about coaching strategies that I've got for you today. We're showing you where to look for the ball. Wayne Gretzky, the hockey star, said that he doesn't look at where the ball is, but where the ball will be. And so maybe you can help your learners to think ahead and look for where the ball will be by using this SQ3R method: survey, question, preview, read, recall, and review. And before I finish this presentation, I just want to remind you that if the learners you coach get upset when they make mistakes, just tell them this quote by Mike Rose. I'm sorry, next time I will enlarge this quote. Error marks the place where education begins. So I try to tell my students that this is an opportunity for them to know what they haven't known before. Okay. Now, I was just wondering if any of you would like to type or let us know if they have any particular preference themselves for any of these strategies. Yes, if you have something that you want to share with us in particular. Okay. Okay, printing off discussion questions is pretty good, but is it possible also to, are you talking as a coach or as a reader yourself? As a reader yourself, you create the own, as a course. Okay, Intro to Psych and Algebra. So they really, do you think that the student could come up with the questions on their own at all? Do you think they need the prompt questions? I think we all do that. We have questions that prompt discussions, and we're pretty specific about them in our courses. But when faced with reading, articles and texts, it would be nice that if the readers can learn how to create their own questions and then look for the answers. That's just the point that I'm trying to make today. Although I'm certain that structured questions are valuable and probably necessary in some courses. Okay, she's typing something else.
So for instance, most likely if you tell the site, they have current specific questions.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
So some students don't read those questions, they don't start to read it.
No, yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to be able to look back in the text to respond and encourage students.
You like to be able to look back in the text to respond and encourage students. Yes, yes, and to encourage them to look back. Of course, the questions that you give them would enable them to look back and find the answers. That's right. But it's really important that people not just, boom, start right in at the beginning and go through without approaching it with questions. That either they've been provided with questions, or I think even better yet, create their own by previewing, surveying, looking at the title, looking at the headings, looking for new vocabulary themselves, and then when they read through, figuring it out from the context most likely. So there's nothing against using a dictionary either. Okay. Hello. Hands up. Maybe I should read it to, well, I don't know. Christopher said I use an outline sometimes, but I find that many times I use the scientific method concepts to create a detailed outline, question the information, address questions. I feel it's very similar to SQ3RES. I've been trained by some of my courses to use scientific methods so much that it just happens now when you read. That's excellent. And so since that's your bent, then you can share that with the learners that you are assigned. Very good. Somebody else is typing. Oh, here we go. Since the psych course is now set up differently, students are able to flip right to the page for the answer. Uh-oh. How can I get the students to avoid jumping right to the page and typing a short answer? Should I just suggest them to use the SQ method? Oh, I think so. I think so. Just tell them that it will be helpful for them to retain it, master it, recall it better if they use that survey method first. Okay. That's an interesting situation here. It's like we used to have the math questions, the math answers in the back of the book.
Let me figure it out, or let me go see what the answer is, and then I'll try to...
Yeah, just try to encourage them to test themselves, okay? To write the answer down, I guess. First, is that possible? I'm not familiar with that course too much.
Too tempting.
Yeah.
So, what else? Let me see here. I'm trying to think of some other questions I could ask.
Yes, what do you think is the biggest roadblock for your student learners? For full comprehension and efficient comprehension of the text and the material they have to read. Time, Well, I think you make the point that this is, for the time you spend with this method, that it's the most efficient. you know, that you won't find your mind wandering, that you'll get the most out of it, especially if you have your pen in hand or pencil in hand to do those annotations. It's extremely helpful. And then, of course, you've got it all annotated to come back to when it comes to any kind of final exams, although we don't really have those kinds of things too much. But it will help in writing discussion questions and in papers too.
Why do you think students just repeat the textbook? So I see that as well.
Okay, now are you finding that students just repeat the textbook word for word? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Laziness, unsure of themselves, and not sure how to paraphrase. Yes. Well, I think perhaps they're going to be picking up some valuable vocabulary. I'd like to have my students use some of the vocabulary I use in the questions, and I'm kind of disappointed when they don't. Even when in discussions they're asked to respond. I think there's nothing wrong with responding using the exact words, only I can't give you an example right now. Maybe if I thought I could. Using the words in the question to formulate their answers. Maybe to ask questions, of course, always fall back on questions. Socratic questions, they're really, really important. Because especially if you don't have the text in front of you, which might not be the case, I don't know. But yes, very important to say, well, can you explain this, or how does this compare with your experience? Bring it back to their own experience if possible. I think psychology, you might be able to do that. Not so sure about algebra. Yeah, but I mean, I have my algebra colleagues who could figure it out. I know that they could come up with some good questions for math too. If you're good in math, you can come up with the questions probably. Yes, it's the best way to get them to understand, can make connections to their own life. Connections in understanding the similarities and differences. All right, Christopher, it hasn't come up much during your time as a coach, but a few times when students get stuck, they tell me what they have, which is very similar to the text. And when I ask them to explain the topic in their own words, they really can't. Yes, students that copy the text a little too closely really don't understand that they've read. That's right. So you suggest they find other sources about the same topic to reread, excellent, the text, and come back with something new to start them on a new path of thinking. And Jennifer agrees with that.
I think that's the toughest part.
Yeah. Using the text a little bit too much. I think if I had a chance to think a little bit more about that, we could come up with some alternative ideas, but I think the fact that you're asking them to paraphrase. Paraphrasing is tricky. Now we're getting into writing strategies here. Yes, bringing in new sources. Mm-hmm. I know, but certainly they need to get a handle on it, because they're going to have to use information that they've read by paraphrasing it. You can't really quote huge bundles of text when you write. So sometimes they need to learn to paraphrase by just substituting words in the text. instructor says, when in doubt, quote, well, I'm sorry, you can't quote more than a couple of lines before you need to indent, and it should be rarely done. Quotes should be used only when you can possibly come up with a better way of saying it yourself. Yeah. So, somebody's writing good. Absolutely. That's right. Well, the thing about quotes is to make sure we know who said it, using the signal phrase, according to Smith, comma, and then you can say the quote. That's right. But what are some of the difficulties that you think students have, student learners have in of their approach to their textbooks and articles that they have to read in their courses? Yeah, overwhelmed by the amount. Well, of course, in vocabulary, right. Well, I think if you look at, if you make it some kind of fun, you can say, what kind of a word is this? Hecklers, or you say, I personally enjoy finding out what new words are, and if you can kind of have that attitude towards it, like, some kind of enjoyment about what is this word, kind of like a spirit of inquiry, an enthusiasm for picking up new vocabulary on your part can be contagious. If you have that kind of idea that this is going to be fun, or we're going to be just biting off one bite. They say that you could eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. Yes, acknowledge that there's a lot, but just say, take priorities. What's the most important thing to start with? And then look through and circle what vocabulary you don't think you know about, and then we'll discuss it. All right? Just put the ball in their court, to use another athletic allusion. Say, tell me what you don't understand here. Tell me what vocabulary that you find new, and then don't give them the answer. Just say, what do you think it means? And of course, it can be puzzled out through the text, or it can be, for heaven's sakes, looked up. Look up some other words for it. In this paraphrasing, you can look up other words for words from the text using synonyms, thesaurus, either from the shelf or on the internet, okay? All right, so if you need to find any of these strategies, let me review the Cornell Notes template. There's plenty of that. Just Google it. The mind mapping is available. These visual or graphic aids are available on the internet. And if you have any additional ideas or questions, we're available. Right, Terry? Okay. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Jennifer and Antoinette and Kim and Teresa. No, that's you. Good to have you with us today. So I hope you enjoy your coaching role. I'm sure you will. Thank you very much. Bye.